Hi, everybody. It's Pastor Jesse, and it's time for this week's Pursuing the Point. Every week, what I will do is kind of do a 5 or so minute lesson on expounding something that came out of my most recent message. And this past week, we looked at Paul's conversion, which is found in Acts chapter 9, talking about Paul converting into what Christ actually had for him. And in that message, we looked at what is sin and talked a little bit about what sin is. And I broke it down into 2 points as to what sin is. First, there are breaking God's divine rules. And if you were to ask somebody, what does it mean to sin? This is going to be the most common one, is breaking God's divine rules. And this is a perfect example, a perfect answer for this. Breaking God's rules, found in 1 John chapter 3:4. Listen to what it says. Every person who practices sin commits an act of rebellion, and sin is rebellion. Sin is, in fact, rebelling against God. Breaking his rules is just that. But there's a second part of sin, and it kind of fits into even breaking his rules. It's really building an identity on anything other than God, other than the image of Jesus Christ in our life. Also found in 1 John chapter 3:6, every person who remains in relationship to him does not sin. Any person who sins has not seen him or known him. So really building an identity, especially your identity in him, is having that relational piece with Jesus Christ. Identity is a really big word right now. So many people are finding their identities in things other than Christ, even Christians. We will find some of our identity in our sexuality or in our politics or in so many other different areas of our life. A lot of us will find it in money or in our job. We will find our identity, who we are, who we believe we are, and we will find that in our identity of different things. And really what this is kind of replacing God. Even with things that might be good, we still kind of replace God and who he is and how we should model our lives after him. Let's look at the 10 Commandments, and you may already know what those 10 Commandments are, but we know back in the Hebrew Bible, it talks about the law, and the beginning of the law are these 10 Commandments. Everything kind of sprung off of what these 10 Commandments are. There's the first one: you shall have no other gods before me. You're not to make idols. You're not to take the name of the Lord in vain. You're to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. You're to honor your father and mother. You are not to murder. You're not to commit adultery. You're not to steal or lie and bear false witness. And you are not to covet, especially what your neighbor has. Having our identity in anything other than God really is breaking these commandments. So let me kind of push in a little bit and show you. The first set really is loving God. Jesus told us to love God and love our neighbor as ourselves. And the 10 Commandments are broken down as such. The first set is about loving God, not having other gods before him or making idols or taking his name in vain. And we can see the second set is really about loving your neighbor. If you love your neighbor, you will honor your father and mother. You will not murder. You'll not commit adultery. And also in that first set is remembering the Sabbath. So the first 4 are about loving God, and the second 6 are really about loving your neighbor. So the 10 Commandments are broken down into those 2. But I want to look a little bit at our identity. That's what we're looking at today. Having our identity is, if it's in something else, this is actually a form of idolatry, breaking the second commandment. When we hold something, even if we think it's good, even if it's something that is good, we can still hold that and find our identity in that thing, in that in our lives, and suddenly that can become idolatry. We find our identity in that instead of in something else. So we can look around and we can have that identity. We need to repent for that. We need to stop and say, where is my identity? Is it in the things of God? Or is it in the things of this world? Is it in the things of God? Or is it even looking around at the different circumstances in our lives? And I want to leave you with this final point, and it really has to do with the circumstances in our lives. I preached a message recently about looking around and looking at the different circumstances, the different things that are going on around us, and we might fear them. We might look at them and say, it's just overwhelming what is going on. And so the point I want to leave us with is we cannot let our circumstances, we cannot let the things around us, our circumstances, create chaos within us. Don't let the circumstances around you create chaos within you. Stop and take a moment, look at our identities. Where do we find the source of our identity? And let's focus those things on God first, repenting of where we might find our identity in other places, in other areas, in other circumstances, and focus on God instead.